At my last job, I was an account manager and we didn't have project managers. And so I kind of had to do both. And then I really kind of leaned towards the project management side. And so I tried to look for jobs that would allow me just to do that.
Hmm. So what about your personality fits really well with project management?
I like to be organized, and I like things to kind of just follow a process, which is basically what the PM job is. But I also, it's just kind of making pieces fit together and work to make that process work. I like to say that I play Tetris all day with tasks and trying to make sure they all fit so we can just keep going.
Yeah. So before you came to Native, what was probably one of your favorite jobs that you had?
I used to work at a coffee shop in college, and I feel like I can't really say it's like a job because I enjoyed it too much. It didn't feel like work. But it also has just prepared me for other things in life just because I can make a mean latte with latte art. So if that's ever needed at Native, I'm your girl.
It's I think almost everybody who's been in project management or account service has done like food service at some point, like work with the general public, you
Mhm.
know. It's like, how do you deal with customers? I mean, that's not the easiest thing, and it I think does prepare you for a lot of things in life.
I love people who come from service industry jobs. Like you said, it just prepares them for everything so they can just take a situation and react so quick to it. And it's like the best way they could do it.
Yeah. So, what is something that, as you came to Native and got to know people, was like an interesting part of you that I think maybe people were surprised to hear, or maybe they don't even know about you right now?
Well, I think you found this out last week, but I started tattooing in quarantine. So I've been trying to practice that just for fun. So it's probably pretty surprising.
Have you found any takers?
Surprisingly, yes. I was like, when you get good, like let me know. I'm like, that's the thing. I don't think I'll ever be good. I think you have to be good at art first, which I'm trying to be good at tattooing, but I'm just starting it all at once, you know?
So you're growing your wait list. They're
Mhm.
just waiting on you to get good.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's gonna be a lucrative
Um,
business.
if I was to ask other people at Native, like, oh, what's Bailey's strength? Like, what's her superpower? What she's good at? What do you think people would say?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, Probably communication. I always try to listen to them and take into consideration what they want versus what we're trying to do and make sure there's a fine balance between the two. So that way they're not being overworked and we're actually getting the project done.
Yeah, that's a pretty good superpower. I mean, communication is usually, when people are frustrated, it's often because of bad communication. So you gotta communicate well.
Yes, exactly.
Um, so your colleagues are a pretty driven bunch. Um, but what about you? What's the reason? What drives you? Like, what motivates you?
I like to work in a dynamic workplace, and I think Native provides that. I don't like when things get stagnant. So I think this is a perfect job for me because there's nothing always stays the same. So I'm constantly doing something. And I think just because of that, I can't just slow down. I still keep going. And that's kind of a motivator in itself.
Yeah, we're dynamic is probably a good word to use there. Like, things are constantly in flux, always changing. Clients are always challenging us with new things. That's for sure.
The name of the game.
Um, what is what are some of the more interesting parts of working at Native in terms of just like the work that you're doing, or the people that you're working with? What's the stuff that's like energizes you, or you just think is more interesting than others?
The work we do is diverse, coming from a background in just websites. I think coming to Native, just being open to all sorts of projects has been really eye-opening. But also you can't get better than the Native crew. Everybody is so passionate about what they do and they inspire me to do better because I'm surrounded by such motivated, driven creatives that's like going in my mind. I'm like, oh, I want to be like them, and they have something to offer. They're always reading something new that makes me want to read my books from college that I haven't gotten to yet and read those to bring something to the table.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, in your work, you get to touch like almost every client, at least half of them probably. Have there been favorite projects where you just really love to see how the work has come together?
I love the really creative ones, that we get to do a lot of the creative like execution on, like seeing Christian work. It makes my husband, I don't understand how his brain can put something in his head to this deck and the client absolutely loves it. Like with limited direction, he just knows and he gets it and he just gets it done. And the way it is and the way they um, accept it is just, it's amazing. Christian is just, I don't get it. He's just so great.
It's pretty cool to work with people where you're just impressed with what they do. I think that's one of the favorite things of the job is just like watching how they work and hoping that you're as good as they are at whatever you do, you know.
And just
That's
like
cool.
sitting down in the not lunch and learns, our show and tells, because I'm more drawn to like the creative things, the pretty things, like a lot of people are. But then hearing like Matt's team and the performance marketing team come to the table with these case studies they've done, I'm like, oh, actually, that's really cool too. And just hearing what they've done and how they do it, it's just it's always a learning experience, and I'm just in awe of the team.
Yeah. Hearing like, Brandon last week talking about Bayesian theorems and stuff. It's like, man, you guys are smart.
I was like, ooh, I feel sorry for the people who have to go next time.
I know. Exactly. Um, so you've been with us for how long? It's about a year or so. Where are we at now?
Yeah, it's been a year in August, the beginning
Hmm.
of August.
Yep. So fortunately, you had some good office time before quarantine happened. Have you had any like favorite moments that you're more likely to tell like friends or family of like, oh yeah, this thing happened at work?
I think all of our happy hours are so different. Um, and it's funny how people interact with each other at Native versus any other job. It's a little bit more tighter group, which could be hard to get into if you're coming from just like as a stranger into a new job. But Native Crew's so welcoming that like the happy hours really help that. They really ask a lot of questions to get you involved. But then the Christmas party, the after party of the Christmas party, I just don't like to talk about that, but it was a lot of fun. And it's just, Native's always a lively place, and it's really hard to kind of translate that to the stay home order and quarantine.
Yeah, we're doing our best. We did the Zoom happy hours for a while, and we're like, all right, let's find something else to do besides
Mm-hmm.
this. Yeah, I think we're all missing uh, time in the office. I know there's a few people who, when we said, all right, we can do 2 days in the office, they're like, yes, I need office time. So
It's just nice too to sit at your desk and you have your goals for the day. It just like it kicks back and you're like, oh great, this is like normalcy. Like I can do this.
hmm yeah, there's definitely a few people who I think either because they're extroverted or just tired at their house, or maybe they just want to see people.
Hmm.
They're like, yeah, I need that office time.
Yeah,
I think there's also groups who are like, hey man, I can be super productive at home, so I'm kind of liking this. So it's nice that I think it's nice that we can be flexible for everybody, and it's kind of suiting everybody's working styles, I think, pretty well so far.
I think so too. I think it's good to have those options if you want to come into the office, like you said, but then the people who work better at home, there are those options for them too, especially with everything going on.
So you've been with us for one of our 5 years. We turned 5 years in quarantine. Um, if you if you look back, you've heard some of the stories about us when we were tiny, right? Do you, if someone was to ask like, well, how have they been able to continue growing, what would you say?
Sorcery. I'm not really. That's a huge question because I do talk about a lot. We're Native, like we've grown so much in the past 5 years, especially where you've come from. I think it is just strong leadership and getting people that really want to move forward and grow the company with the company.
Yeah. Do you have any predictions of what we'll look like in another 5 years?
Crazy. Hopefully, we'll be in our new office by then.
Oh my gosh, it's taking forever.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to grow on some departments, bring new people in. I hope we get bigger and more not interesting because we're already doing interesting projects, but just like bigger scale. I think that'd be really interesting.
That's cool. When I'm interviewing with people, a lot of times I'll ask uh, other people in the room, usually not me, but they'll say, "Hey, why do you work at Native? Like, why did you choose it? Like, you know, you didn't know everything about us when you were interviewing. What made this stand out as a good fit for you?"
Oh, you're asking me the question.
Yeah, like, yeah, how would you, if they were trying to decide, oh, should I go to Native or somewhere else? Like, what would you say?
Well, I can say that with my interviewing process, it happened twice. I wouldn't stop bugging Jackie. I kept emailing her like, "Hey, is that job still available? Hey, what about this? Is it still available?" So I definitely worked my way in. But I mean, I love to be Native's biggest fan. Like, I would love to have more people come on and join in. So like, I talk about Native endlessly just because it is just such a good place to work. It has a good environment, has great people, and the projects are fun to work on.
Yeah. So how do you and Jess approach project management, similarly or differently?
Yeah, so when I started, we didn't really have, well, we had processes, but they were in spreadsheets. And so one of the biggest things was trying to move those over to Asana to be templatized. So that way, when we work, it's a little easier on us, but everything kind of follows the same process. And that's kind of a pipe dream in a way because things are always evolving. Like you said, there's one project is never going to be the same as the other, like following it. And so just being flexible and making those tweaks here and there, but also me and Jess always have to communicate to each other if there are those changes. That way we can update it and make sure it's the most accurate process that we're working from. And Jess is amazing at it. So
I was talking with a guy yesterday, and he said, "Hey, I checked out your staff page. I was really happy to see you guys have a project manager." He goes, "I think that's so important for a marketing firm like yours." And I was like, "Yeah, we've got two of them." And he's like, "Oh, wow." I'm like, "How would we function without one?" Like, have you met firms that don't? He's like, "Oh yeah, I've met a lot of firms that don't." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like that sounds like a nightmare."
yeah, I feel like once you have a PM, especially talking to AMs, it's hard to go back without them just because the AMs, like, they take on more work and they're focused on the clients, whereas we can jump into the dirty end of things and then it just works. Where like you can't, now you just can't cross the two again, you know? So
Yeah, and I was also talking to, Christian the other day, and he's like, "Well, I was here before the PM discipline started. This like 4 years ago." He goes, "It's a major upgrade," because we had to self-organize too much, and it was like draining our batteries on things that weren't our skill set, right? It wasn't like our strength. He's like, it was night and day difference. Fortunately, he only had to be here for like 2 months before we had everything fired up on. We had two project managers right after he started, but he's like, "Oh yeah, way better, way better."
that's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of clients who are, they'll say, "It looks like you guys are going to do good work, or are you going to drag out the timelines, or is this going to go over budget and things like that?" I think that's like, we hit deadlines. We've got a couple people who really make sure of that.
That's my main goal.